What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 40. That's 40 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and what an unbelievable card we have coming for you guys today with Oklahoma Derby Day card here at Remington Park on Sunday. Again, this is not Saturday, this is Sunday, but they came out with the entries early enough to where we're going to cover a fantastic card for Remington's best day of their meet. And not only that, we'll be covering multiple marquee matchups in NCAA football and, of course, NFL football on Sunday. And a little bit of foreshadowing here. I'm assuming we're going to get into a pretty heated argument here between two of our co-hosts that happen to be fans of opposing sides coming this Saturday. But again, we'll leave it until we get to that portion of the show, but a little bit of teaser for you guys. For anyone new here, thank you guys so much for stopping by. Again, this is our 40th episode, which is absolutely crazy to say. Of course, that's 40 weeks of Bettin N Boozin, which we only have you guys to thank. So thank you guys so much for supporting us in everything we do. We only appreciate it. As you see scrolling across the bottom side of the screen, the flagship show tomorrow, Howard, Pete, and Paul will be covering a fantastic card on Saturday at Parks. It is Pennsylvania Derby Day, which is their biggest day of the meet. So a little bit of smaller track week for you guys today. So, some tracks that are not really covered over, a lot of different podcasts, but these days will definitely be covered. So hopefully you guys enjoy these days, but that will be tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern Daylight Time. And that will be covering Pennsylvania Derby Day at Parks, which Paul, one of the co-hosts, will, of course, be there as he was last year on Pennsylvania Derby Day. But if you're brand new here or you're coming back on the regular and you aren't subscribed, why not? It's free. Please go below the bottom under the video, the big red subscribe button. Please hit it and hit the like button while you're down there. That helps push out this video and every other video that we post into the YouTube algorithm to get more people to come watching our show, which of course benefits us and benefits you guys. So please do that. We'd greatly appreciate it. And hit that notification bell to be notified on every single show that comes up on the HHH Racing Podcast Network, because it's not only Wednesday and Thursdays. Sometimes we have live shows on the weekends. Sometimes we have recap shows earlier in the week. So it's stuff that you do not want to miss. Please hit like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. But guys, going through the peripherals right here, and then we'll get into it pretty quickly. If you're more of an audio listener, whether you listen to it at the gym or while you work or on the way to work in the car, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchors, where you'll find every single episode that is posted onto the HHH Racing Podcast Network, not only of Bettin N Boozin, but of every single show that's posted. So please go like and review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. The Power Picks for the HHH Racing Podcast, we send out two full write-ups of tracks. That's Howard, Pete, and Paul who do them. It's only $4 a weekend, $15.99 a month, which is how Patreon bills it out to you every month, $15.99. But you're getting two full write-ups of tracks, which include grid plays, spot plays, price plays, minimum 2 to 3 per track. And you're getting that for only $4. Again, that's two full tracks for only $4 a weekend. If you're not subscribed, you are missing out. Not to mention the positive ROI, which is above $2.30 over the entirety of how long we've been doing the Power Picks, which is over almost 2 years at this point, which is kind of nuts. Again, that's positive ROI for 2 years. You are missing out. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, manned by our co-host on the flagship show, Pete Viscu. If you want to know anything about us, you want to see previous editions of the Power Picks, please go to hhhracingpodcast.com and check it out there. See a bunch of people in the chat joining in. Thanks guys so much for joining in. Greatly appreciate it. But we are going to have, for the first time, not the first time, but the first time since it was announced, we're going to have the full entire crew on here tonight for you guys. It's going to be a special show starting with the newest full-time edition to Bettin N Boozin on the HHH Racing Podcast from the West Coast, Noah Maher. From the East Coast on the other side, Patrick Kuenzel. And from the Ohio State University, Charlie Freeman. Boys, we're all here tonight. What's going on?
Finally.
And all I get from Noah is a laugh, so I know we're ready to go. But I see a bunch of comments in here. Racing Downwind is here. Boozin boys, let's do this. Absolutely. The wall's on fire. Yeah, that's the portraying is that the Chicago Bears organization is just on my back wall. So Howard, thanks for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Jim Pilars is here for his last Wednesday. Let's make it count. Jim, trust me, there's going to be a lot of good banter and good analysis here on this podcast tonight. So thanks for joining the show. Tom Espinoza says, looks like a metal concert. Maybe that's what I was going for, Tom. You'll never know. But I decided to play around with the lights a little bit. Hopefully it's not too much distracting. Is it the two or a wave? Charles B is here. Thanks so much for doing the show. Simon O'Neill says, bye now, don't delay. Very astute viewer from all the way on across the pond in the UK. Simon, thanks so much for joining the show. I greatly appreciate it. And then Kyle, Penn State Scott says, tell the boss he'll need a handicap from a canoe for the Pennsylvania Derby day tomorrow. Man, yeah, I looked at the weather for that, and yeah, it looks pretty bad. Paul might have to take a canoe to the track on Saturday if they're still running. But Penn State Scott, thanks so much, man, for joining the show. But guys, we're going to get started pretty quick here as we have a lot of racing to cover and a lot of football to cover as well. Because the Remington Park, again, it's their biggest day. It's an 8-stake card. Only 2 of them are graded. The last 2, the Remington Park Oaks and the Oklahoma Derby, are both grade 3s. But the rest of the card, except for the first 2 races, are all listed stakes. So it's an absolutely fantastic card. Very big fields in all of these races. So it's going to be a great betting day as well. And there are some pretty decent favorites in here, but there's no saying that they're necessarily locks by any means in these races. But this should be a good show, and not to mention that our picks will be as hot as my background is. Again, it looks like my background is on fire, which funny enough, the lighting program says this is fire. So, that's the way it goes. But we're going to get right into the late pick 5 here. It starts in race number 6 at Remington Park on Sunday. And again, if you're in the chat and you've already looked at this card, please feel free to post your opinions in the live chat. We will definitely take a look at every single chat that goes through. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. Race number 6 is the Kip DeVille Stakes going, as I click around, it's not showing up. Okay, there we go. 6 furlongs on the dirt for 2-year-olds. Draws a field of 9 in this field with a very wide group, I would say. You got some Oklahoma breds, some Louisiana breds, Texas breds, Kentucky breds, and a Nebraska bred. So this is a full family affair here as I shared the screen to look at the Equibase. They do not have morning lines out for these first 3 races we are talking about. They are out for the Remington Park Oaks and the Oklahoma Derby that they got out early, but they are not out for these races. Full field of 9. Most likely the morning line favorite will either be the number 4, Good Like Magic for Pratt and Cox, or the number 8, General Shipman for I cannot remember her name, Tohill and Slice, excuse me. But General Shipman beat Good Like Magic last time out, but obviously the connections of Good Like Magic could push him into favoritism as well. But I'm going to switch over the picks right now, guys, and I'll have Noah start first. So the way we're going to do this, guys, since we have 4 on the screen, I'm going to pass it off to Noah right away, and he's going to go through his top 3, mainly most about his top pick, and then a little bit if he wants to add anything underneath, and then we'll kind of just go around in a round table selection to kind of make it a little bit quicker for you guys. But race number 6, let's switch over the picks. We all have the same exact top 3, but Noah's going with a horse that none of us have on top. It is the number 3 Magical Mark for Carl Broberg, and the shipping over Christian Torres, who rode fantastic at Churchill and of course at the Oaklawn meet. But what'd you like most, Noah, about Magical Mark?
Yeah, I went with Magical Mark to kick us off. When I first looked at this race, I didn't really see any horses that would kind of pass each other. But in terms of speed, I was impressed with the 74 on debut and obviously 1 by 10. But who knows who he beat that time. And I just feel like he was kind of over his head in that listed stake at Ellis. I mean, it seemed like a pretty good field, and the Wine Steward came back to win. He's had a little bit of a break. Carl Broberg, I don't know a ton about him, but when I do see him, he seems very professional. He ships to win. He ships with intent. And like you said, with Chris Torres, he's been riding harder than anybody. So that's my top pick. And then I went with Good Luck Magic in second. Probably the horse that would be most likely to stalk off that speed and go by in the stretch. I just feel like you're going to get a horrible price with these connections. They're going to get played all sequence long. And then I went with General Shipman in third, who won on debut and then actually beat Good Like Magic last time, but kind of surprised at 10-1.
Yeah, and of course I'll let Patrick talk about General Shipman the most, as he has him on top. But it raced last time in the same race. General Shipman set a pretty contested early pace, but although he was alone, was able to power through. But they were coming at him in the final strides between Dawson Storm and Good Like Magic, who ended up getting passed by Dawson Storm in the late stages. But Patrick, of course, you have this horse on top, and you think that even though Good Like Magic and all those connections in here again, you think he shouldn't have any problem with versing this field.
Yeah, I just think General Shipman's faster and should clear being outside as well in this spot. Like you said, facing similar foes that, I just think the pace in this race is going to be set up by General Shipman, who on the PPs looks to just be insanely fast. I think should show improvement again off this last race and could only get better. And then, I don't know if you want to hit on, who you have. I know you have the 4 on top, but the 3 Magical Mark that Noah hit on, that horse, last out, that's kind of a toss race for me. Did have some excuses in that race. And the 4, I'm expecting that horse, like you said, connections wise, is going to take money and probably will be the favorite. So that would benefit me with my selection.
Yeah. And it's really going to come down to connections versus pace scenario here. There are a lot of horses that want to be up front, which, Charlie, I'm sure you saw what I saw in the fact that even though it was a fast pace last time, General Shipman is going to have to take a lot of pressure in this race. But I think even General Shipman could be the morning line favorite just based on, race flow alone and the fact that he beat a horse like Good Like Magic last time out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I see the 1, 2, and 3 all have to go. The 8 has to go. You have a bunch of horses in this field that, and also even for ones that might not have been on the lead, you can simply see by the fact that some of these horses are running 4.5, 5 furlongs. It feels like just about every horse has to go. And the only ones that don't have to go are mainly the horses that just don't have the speed to be able to go. Like they're the horses that have no business being entered in this race and will probably be 30-1, will sit in the back and be a non-factor. For me, the only stalker I even see in this race, or more of a presser to be honest, is the 4 horse. And that's why I put the horse that's why I ended up putting Good Like Magic on top. Honestly, obviously, don't get me wrong. It's nice to get Pratt. Obviously, great to have Cox as well and the horses working decently. But for me, it wasn't even about the connections. If you blank those out and just let me look strictly from a style perspective, I understand that the horse was in a hot pace last time, closed in and couldn't quite get there. I completely get that. That's why, for me, I think this race does come down to the 4 and the 8. I'm just banking on the fact that you're going to get another hot pace race. And maybe just because there's going to be a little more of those horses that have ran shorter than this that are going to, for me, typically it's the shorter the race, the faster those speed horses are because they're used to just going in an all out sprint. And I just feel like this is going to be an extremely hot pace. I think it hurts the 8 that a lot of the speed is going to be, right on the rail because it's not like, oh, well, if the 8 just beats the horse out next to it, the horse is set. The 8's going to have to move across with all the speed already to the inside. I just think the 4 is going to happily say, you guys all next to me can go. I'll sit right in behind. I think he's going to get a great trip. I think Flavian's going to navigate it well. I think he'll go right by them all late. The only reason I think the 8 could be tough is, as you mentioned, the 8 is the only one that has experience out of all these speed horses in dealing with a hot pace and actually showing the ability to hang on. So for me, it's between those 2. The 8 will be the only speed horse that can hang on the whole way. The question is, can the 4 take the trip?
Yeah, and the funny thing you say that, Charlie, is you mentioned about how the 1, 2, and 3 have to go to the inside, or they look like they'll be going to the inside. I mean, if you do the math, 1, 2, 3, you got number 4, Good Like Magic, who looks to just slot in right behind him on the rail. And if the 8's pretty deep and has to navigate a trip from out there, Good Like Magic just looks to have a really nice trip in this spot. And I understand that he did get beat last time and he really didn't have too many excuses. But the fact of the matter is that the 8's going to probably be stuck out wide unless he clears. He's going to have to deal with the 3 horses doing his inside, and whether they're good enough to beat him or not. It's just a matter of if he takes enough pressure, does a horse like Good Like Magic have enough on the back end to be able to finish down the lane in this spot? And I understand that the number 8 dealt with it both times, and obviously he was fourth by a neck. And that's what he was dueling out in the open, so that could be another thing to the experience standpoint. But we'll take a look at this race real quick, just from this the out of the gate and then the stretch run. This was at Prairie Meadows in the freshman stakes. So you'll see the number 4, I believe, is General Shipman, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
so you see
Good Luck Magic.
I don't know, actually. Let's see. Oh, the number 8 is Good Like Magic. My apologies. You're right, Charlie. I'm stupid. So number 4 is General Shipman. So you'll see he's back. The number 8 is back here. Number 4, General Shipman, just takes command early. What do you think, Mark, who was 1-2 in this race by Arlington legend Patricia's Hope? But you'll see the number 8 he comes early, makes an early move to the outside, kind of falls back a little bit as we'll move to the stretch run. You'll see General Shipman's just getting asked here, and now the 8's in full out drive. Looks like almost pushed the button a little too early, but still is enough to finish down the lane here. And I know General Shipman's still not really being asked, although he starts to ask him really here, and he's getting caught. The legs are getting a little weary. The wire comes, but in a race like that where this horse might have a little bit more pressure to his inside, I could see a horse like Good Luck Magic just getting a perfect trip. And, General Shipman could be the better horse in the long run, but it's just a matter of, I think Good Luck Magic could just benefit from an easy trip in a spot like this. But it's nice when we have the same top 3, so we can get through this race
we can just get
fairly
right
quickly, just bang, bang. There's one other horse that was stalking, as Racing Downwind mentioned, the 4 and the 9, the number 9, Tigers and Bears Oh My, is in this race and did stalk last time at a Remington Park at 5 furlongs. But that just seemed like and that was not to mention coming back a pretty quick 3 weeks. But coming out of this race, I mean, this horse improved from a 0 to a 10, and this horse decreased from an upturned brim decreased from 55 to a 50. So that maiden race didn't necessarily come up very tough, at least by the looks of it right now. Could win if he gets the pace set up, but I think the number 4, Good Like Magic, is a more talented horse, and it could just be between the number 4 and the number 8. I'm going 4-8-3. Charlie's also going 4-8-3. Patrick's going 8-3-4, and Noah's going 3-4-8. And Pat and Howard, I completely agree with you, man. We'll get to this later, which is going to be a talking point. It's all, what is the 5 and the 6 doing in this race? It's the same trainer, Eric Snodgrass. And again, this is we're not throwing shade directly or anything like that, but both these horses were in the same race and finished by 29 lengths back and 29 3/4 lengths back, respectively, and now gets thrown into a listed 2-year-old stake. And I understand purse and everything like that, but I mean, it just does not seem like the spot.
The works are really bad too. 105 for 5 furlongs, 53 for 4.
Yeah.
Are they just going to go stroll and say hi to the crowd? Like they're going to be in the next race.
Not to mention, this is an interesting work tab for Wreck-It. We worked September 12th at Will Rogers Downs, and then worked at September 16th again at Remington Park, and now in a week's time he's going to run in the race. I don't know. I get that, you want to be in these races and you want to, show that you can be in these races. But I mean, if you run these races and run well, then, kudos to you. Maybe you just knew something about the horse that everyone else didn't. But if they run back by, again, 40 lengths, that's the question. Then you're like, why? But again, if they run well, then so be it. But I'm not going to be playing any of these horses, including with the one later in social events. Charles B., you're one of my favorites, man. You're hilarious. Either way, we all have the same top 3, and we'll be moving on pretty quick here. Going to race number 7, guys. It is the CT Ricks Memorial Stakes, going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf for 3-year-olds, for fillies and mares, 3 years old and up. Draws a full field of 10 in this spot. And as I switch over the picks right now, 2 of us are going with the most likely morning line favorite in Juncture. Pratt Cox again, most likely to take a hell of a bunch of money, as Noah touched on earlier. But Noah, you're going to be. Did you go first last time, or did Patrick? I
went first.
You went first, so Patrick, you're going to be first this time. And considering you're also going with a horse who I thought was very interesting, who I have in second. The guys, the other guys have nowhere. The number 10 Tipsy Gal for Carl Broberg looks. I thought she was really interesting in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the horse is, obviously stretching out in distance in this spot. After running 2 7.5 furlong races. Um, I just look at this distance. I like this stretch out here because I think with a pace that is questionable, I think the idea here is going to be this horse wants to go to the lead, and I think if this horse can get it, could take him all the way. And this horse is going to be a price. I get the 6-year-old. You know, you wonder if it can get back to one of those 80 buyer races that it's run. But in this spot with, facing similar horses in previous races, I think this horse should get the lead in a spot, like I said, with a wide open pace.
Yeah, and then he puts in Charles V puts in a good comment here. Off pace, early speed. It's pretty equal, so the track plays pretty fair.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Patrick. And obviously, I'll let you touch on the two that you have underneath as well. You'll get first crack at Juncture, but Tipsy Gal from a pace scenario, which you said was questionable at best. I agree with you. She ran well at Lone Star at 1 mile and 1/16th, running her top buyer. I mean, I know it's probably not, and she has the tendency to fade. But out of a pace that's going to be questionable, I don't understand why she can't just stay for second or third if horses are just better than her. But there is a lot of different ways you can go. But go ahead, finish up your comments, and then I'll move on to Charlie.
Yeah, with Juncture, who's going to be the heavy favorite, I would think. Listen, this horse, if this pace sets up to be fast, this horse should win going away. And it just scares me as a favorite like this. I'm not a big fan of betting on favorites that are going to be coming from off the pace when I just don't know what the pace is going to be like. But I know you said you've been following this horse a lot, Kyle. So Juncture, is a quality horse. Has run 480 buyers since being in the States and has faced tougher competition. And then the 8, that is Family Time. Yeah. This horse has improved. Should be forwardly placed, comes out of the same 2 races as the horse I have on top. And I just think this horse is right in the mix with all the other ones. In a pretty fun race, in my opinion, if the favorite doesn't run big.
I mean, there's just a lot of different ways, especially if you don't you don't necessarily trust the favorite on the inside, which she has been proven to be hard to trust since coming over to the States. But a little bit of highlight into my argument here that I'll give later. This is by far the easiest spot that she's had in time over the States. But Noah, I'll actually let you go second since Charlie, we have the same top pick again here. The number 9, Noah, you have in first. I have in third the number 9, Templar Red for Carl Craddock. I mean, ran her best race last time out, and I think she could get a very similar trip again here.
Yeah, I feel like on the show we like to talk about, how the 6-year-olds, aren't as good as they used to be. You could kind of make the case that this 6-year-old is still improving. I mean,
yeah.
If you go back to the first 2 turf races, she won with a 60 and 69, and then comes back in June is winning with an 81, 82. And then with those 2 races kind of in the middle, I think she was too far back, and I kind of give her some excuses. But I just wasn't super sold on Juncture. I just feel like with Juncture, she's either going to win going away or she's not going to run at all. So I just kind of wanted to go with some local connections, and these connections have been crushing it here. I mean, they're 31% for the year. That's insane. And then in third, I agreed a little bit with Charles B. I was interested in the back numbers on Island Hideaway. I mean, she won this race last year. She's run multiple 80s. I mean, that was about a year ago today. I just don't know if she can run back to that. Another Broberg and Torres connection. She's the notch that I give to her is that she's been very successful at track, so maybe that will kind of get her back to her senses.
I mean, the very interesting thing here, right, is obviously she's run extremely well at Remington Park. She's 5 for 6 in the money, 3 for 6 on the win end, and picks up Christian Torres. Obviously, Christian could have gone to the other Broberg in this spot, which is the horse that we find interesting on the outside, Patrick, the number 10. But I just don't know, it comes to a time when these mares get old enough, and she's turned 6 now. I just don't know if Island Hideaway is good enough, as good as she was previously. Those 80s last year, Remington would definitely be good enough to win in a spot like this. But coming back that she ran a 66 two back-to-back or 275s. I mean, she can definitely win in this spot, especially since if you play the horse for course angle at Remington Park. But I just don't know if she's frankly as good enough. But can Island Hideaway win? Absolutely, she can win. She just has to run back to what she did last year at this time at Remington Park, but could definitely win, like I said. So, Charlie, I'll let you touch on now. Juncture, number one. Pratt, Cox, I mean, just running in very tough spots behind Via Reggio. Justify My Love, Henrietta Topham, Lovely Princess, Bipartisanship. I mean, just this is a kind of a running line. You know, we talk about this all the time with the running line angle facing the horses, and you know, we talk about it so much it gets kind of annoying to talk about every time, but this has to be talked about, and this is definitely Juncture's easiest spot since coming to the States by far.
Oh, not even. I mean, this is a very weak field. In terms of the fact that it's an exciting field for this race, absolutely. It's probably, my guess would be one of the strong, like a pretty middle of the pack to strong field for this race. But I think Juncture is too good for this spot. I feel like, not that the horse has been bad enough to say, oh, this is a must win, but certainly for a horse that continuously gets bet down, this is a significantly easier spot. Gets Flavien Prat, has the connections, and I feel like the reality is, whenever you're seeing that Brad Cox Flavien Prat connection, this is not somewhere he rides. He doesn't go to Remington Park. So the fact that you're bringing these kind of horses over with this jockey combination feels like these are consistently must-win spots for those horses. The one thing I do like is the fact that the horse was able to find a way to win as a closer, even in a slow pace. That kind of tells me that, you know, doesn't matter what the pace is, this horse should run. And as well as also an angle we've kind of talked about before, when a horse kind of shows like a repeat figure, could be, you know, primed for that step forward, which I feel like is going to happen here. I like the fact that, you know, after that layoff from, not that May to July is massive, but nonetheless, you know, coming into like that summertime now, and then in August is kind of sticking with that pattern, but hasn't shown any sort of loss of touch. I think any sort of figure in the mid 80s is good enough to win in this race. I think you've certainly got at least 4 or 5 horses in this field that have to go. So I like Juncture. And then it was kind of touched on by Racing Downwind, who's definitely one of our best viewers, about how the 4 and 10 have to go. And that's why I put the 4 in second, is I kind of feel like an angle I like to take a lot is look for a horse that's going to be up front to counter the horse that you like if it's a closer, and kind of the idea of, okay, if the speed gets away, this is the one I like. And if the closer gets there in time, then that's what I like. And what I like about the 4, you know, sticking with, I don't know who the jockey is, but I've seen Elliott has ridden a lot of these horses before and has had successful trips. So the fact that he's chosen to go on Medalla March kind of, to me, tells me that this is obviously the horse he has the most confidence in. You know, was bet down heavily after a little bit of a layoff, down to 50 cents. So clearly the betting market believed in this horse coming back. And I do like the fact that this horse has kind of shown the ability to be right up on paces and then just get away, you know, not fade, not be kind of stuck in a grindy out battle, gets away. So I do think the 4 could be dangerous at a much more reasonable price and has shown good figures. And then with the 9, I mean, Noah kind of already touched on everything I wanted to say about the 9, so I won't really add much. But yeah, just again, another horse that looks game here. And I think the main issue with the 9, in terms of the 1 and the 16th race, obviously aside from the competition level, I just think they had this horse too far back. It looked like with Templar Red, they finally found something with this horse, which is Templar Red needs to sit right off the speed. Just sit a couple lengths off and then go. And the problem is in that race was 6 lengths off the lead right away. The horse just didn't have a chance. That's not the horse's race.
Yeah, which I do agree with you, just tactic standpoint. I think they found something good with Templar Red, which is why I have her in 3rd. With Juncture, guys, this is my thing. I still stand by the fact that was the day where I was at Indianapolis. I was all over her that day, which she got put down to the favorite, which of course she did because I played her, so I only play favorites. So she had to be bet down to the favorite, but she should have won that race. She was on the inside. Marcelino will give her a great ride, just had absolutely no room and got shut off at about the quarter pole and just had to re-rally, and she just didn't have it in her. That's the only race in her 4 in the States where she's dropped lengths coming into the stretch. She's always coming with her run, no matter if it's a hot pace, cold pace, doesn't matter. My biggest thing is that this is a significantly easier spot. She's already showed that she can close into a cold pace on an easier spot there at Lone Star Park. She comes down to Remington, which is about that same competition level as Lone Star Park, as you get a lot of the same horses coming from that meet over to this meet. I just think Juncture could run really big here, and even if she is far back, I still think that she can really profit off of any type of pace whatsoever in this type of spot. And maybe she is just the best. I think Cox will have her ready, but it's just a matter of if she's going to be too far back come the quarter pole. And like I said, she'll always come with her run, but we don't know if it will be good enough. But I'm going 110.9. Charlie's going 149. Patrick's going 10.18, and Noah's going 9.17. And obviously, keep an eye on the value with Juncture. 3 to 5 on the win end is something I would never play in a horse like this, but you might be able to get some value in doubles and different types of bets. So try to, if you like Juncture a lot, try to find it in those types of pools. But the win end might not be your best bet on a horse that is going to be way bet down, especially probably from a morning line, even from a morning line of 8 to 5. It'll be bet down to probably at least even money. But moving on to race number 8, guys, here. It is the David Vance Stakes, going 6 furlongs on the dirt for 3-year-olds and up. It draws another field of 9 with the morning line favorite, most likely, I would assume, the number 7, Albizu, for Christian Torres and Robertino Diodoro. He just looks like the one that's going to be most ready in this spot. And as I switch over right now, funny enough, we all have the number 7, Albizu, in this spot. So, guys, we're either going to be extremely right or extremely wrong in this spot, and I really hope it's extremely right because I really like this horse. Charlie, you are up first, my friend. You get the first crack at it. What do you like the most about Albizu?
I mean, look, the figures obviously fit. Linking back up with Torres is obviously a plus. And honestly, Albizu's just been running consistent races. I mean, again, you look at the figures after those mid-80s, which are nothing to, be upset about, but then get to 97, 97, 95. Another thing we've talked about is, again, versatility, the ability to do it different paces. Has normally been in, I'd say, medium to hotter paces, but even in that cold pace was right in and around there. Ran in fields that are probably going to be tougher than this one by a decent margin. And again, I just like the aspect that this horse has shown the ability to, be way back and then close in and get the lead, get the win, or sit a few lengths off the lead and then go by for the win. So I just like that Torres has plenty of options with this horse in terms of where to put up Albizu. And again, it's just proven time and time again to always at least be somewhere in and around the money in tougher fields. So I think in this spot, certainly has to be the horse to beat. Then second, I went with Dean's List. A little surprised to see no one else has this horse. Now, granted, didn't really run a great race last time out. Flattened out, was bet down to favoritism against some of these horses in this field. But I'm just trusting that the horse can get, back on track. The workouts, to me, I really like to see that in that recent workout, ran a minute flat. To me, at least shows that maybe the horse is kind of back to working sharp and could certainly do well in the spot again compared to some of the other races. This horse has been running against Albizu a lot and hasn't quite gotten the job done, but it still ran very comparatively in those tougher fields. So I just think from a competition standpoint, strength of schedule, Dean's List certainly fits in this spot to be competitive. And I believe I had the 5 in third. Is that right?
I don't know. Do you send me your picks, man? What do you got?
Yeah. I believe it stayed in for half. Who's just going to send? I mean, the horse is just going to send. Obviously, hasn't shown the ability when running against horses like Albizu to actually get the job done. But I just think the horse will be in and around somewhere. Going to be interesting to have Joel Rosario on. Not the most aggressive jockey for a horse that needs to be aggressive. But, if Joel gets the job done with this horse, it certainly wouldn't surprise me. This horse will be the one that gets on the lead. The question is, can the horse hold up? I don't know what the distance, if it can.
I love the. In fact, I mean, if you want a rider that knows how to ride on the front end, Joel is definitely a guy that you want. Obviously, picks up the ride for Asmussen and Stone Street connections. Just alone, this horse will be bet down a little bit, but he really is trending forward and could definitely be there. I have this horse in second, and I think if the pace holds together, the one I want from the top flight is stayed in for half, but. Noah, I'm assuming, I don't know where he went. I'm assuming he'll be back here shortly, just having a little bit of issues. So I apologize. But Patrick, I'll let you talk about you can touch on anything that was missed about Albizu and then go into your next two, which is obviously stayed in for half and Amos Moses Hart, who do you want to talk about a horse that it could be polarizing? That's one of them.
Yes, very much so. Listen, Albizu, I just think this horse is going to get the setup. I'm not going to say anything else that Charlie hit on a lot of it. And he has faced, tougher competition. So, this is one of the easier spots I would say for this horse. And I do like this horse a lot. And then, the 4. Listen, this is interesting. I mean, a horse coming out of Remington Park getting a 95 buyer speed figure.
We can just show it because this I want, people can watch this for what it is. But I mean, this horse got a 95 buyer, won by 16.5 widening lengths, might I add, and you can guess which horse he is. But go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, it's the number 10.
Finish your. Yeah, he's out here. No, he's the 6 out in front.
I will say, at the beginning of that race, coming out of the gate, when that horse makes the lead, the horse does look visually appealing. Just looks bigger and stronger than the other horses, in my opinion. So it has that going for him with the visual. But I mean, it's hard to believe that this horse is going to run back to that. I mean, I'm going to have the horse on my tickets, but this is a tough horse to have, and you got to watch the board here to see if this horse is going to be bet. But this is really, really interesting.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you what, the most likely, whenever I say this, it might be the kiss of death, but most likely this horse is not going to have that easy of a lead, will not be alone on the lead. And if he can burst away from a 95, that's when I'll start believing. But for a horse like Amos Moses Hart, like I said, 5-2, if you got 5-2, if you played him last time, that's a gift and a half in that race. But this race is much, much tougher. And again, if he could he could run back to it for sure. But for a horse that's going to take a lot more pressure than he did and a lot more competition, it will definitely be interesting to see how a horse like Amos Moses Hart reacts. But not to mention, this horse debuted as a 4-year-old.
That's another great point.
He didn't, a lot of these horses have been ready. He's had one race at 4, and now he's going to jump up into a race like this, which is definitely the most logical play. It's definitely the most logical play. I mean, it's based on timing, so it's not necessarily that it's inflated. I mean, he won by 16.5. And by the way, if you want to take a look at this 95 to a 48 buyer, so that the second horse got half of what. I mean, he won by 16. He won by half the whole stretch.
But what do you want? But the problem I'm having is even from a timing perspective, right? So it says it was 5.5 in what, a minute?
Minute 3,
3.3, but then stayed in half runs. Well, I guess State and a half got a 94 for that, but I swear somebody else got in the low 80s and still ran a faster time. I don't know. Maybe it is true. It's hard for a Remington Park race, and as you mentioned again,
but it's also
think the horse freaked like that well. And again, you're right. I mean, like Pep said, the horse looked incredible off the replay. But I mean, you had horses like the 10 in that race. There were some bad horses that horse was running against and had no competition within a few seconds. And I don't know. I feel like it's just a tough race to really know. Like you mentioned, it's a 4-year-old debut, and I wanted to put this horse on the ticket, but I feel like this horse is going to get hammered down and is either going to get lucky enough to freak or not. The work scared me also with a 54-4 for 4 furlongs.
That's just a maintenance work after that. If after that, I mean, did the horse race there? I mean, was it a paid workout? I think maybe. It's just he's just coming back out and working. But I agree with you, Charlie, in the fact that he's definitely. It's not going to be a paid workout this time. He's going to have to work for the lead. He's going to have to show it again and again. Could easily run back to that, but it's just a matter of, is he good enough to be able to compete with horses like this? And if he is, then so be it. But I'm willing to take one more against this horse. But Noah, I'll let you touch on real quick here. Or Patrick, do you want to touch anything about Stayed in Half, or do you want to move on?
No, we're good. Listen, that horse, I'm hoping if the 4 is as fast as it looks, the 5 will stay right with him to, muster up that pace.
Don't disagree with you. And like I said, the 4's never faced the competition, so I'd be much rather inclined to take the number 5. It looks like he's finally improving at age 4. Coming now, this is 4th off the layoff, 3rd on the dirt, where he's only been improving ever since he debuted at 4. But no, I'll let you touch on. We touched on the 7 Albizu a lot. You can add anything that you found extremely interesting. If not, you can feel free to talk about your other 3.
That college Wi-Fi, man.
Yeah, the UK, living in the middle of, middle of Lexington. I don't think you get fiber out there.
Yeah. Albizu, pretty logical. In the second spot, I am actually really interested in American Experiment. I know a lot of attention is going to go to the other Asmussen with Rosario getting on. But I got at least a lot of reasons why I definitely do not like this horse. Number one, guys probably already touched on it, but was part of a really slow pace last time, and I just feel like there are multiple horses that are much faster than this horse, so I don't really see the horse getting the trip. Number 2, that race was 10 times better than his last buyer, so from a trust standpoint, I'm going to have to see it again. And then third point, you could say the horse was improving. I think that's complete bull. First race of the year was on turf. Second race was supposed to be against turf horses and ended up winning. And then the third, you obviously know. So I lean more toward the other Asmussen. I just think this horse is ultra consistent. And the figures in the last 4 are really not that far off. I feel like probably a high 80 or a low 90 will probably get it done. So if this horse runs back to that 87, this horse is going to be 3-4 times the price of the other Asmussen, and I'm thinking he'll be able to run him in the top three, and I'll get huge value.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is going to be one of those horses that's going to be right behind a horse like Amos Moses Hart and Staying for Half. The thing I liked about Staying for Half is he doesn't necessarily need the lead by any means. You can see, granted, it was against, as Noah pointed out, off the turf horses, but just the fact of the matter that he has the ability to rate, I think, is always good for these speed horses, that if they don't get the lead, it's not necessarily the end of the world. So Staying for Half is definitely interesting to me. But I can definitely see your point with American Experiment, who was actually on. I have him in third, so I also think he's very interesting. I'm going, Albizu, Asmussen. So it's nothing very creative, but I think these 3 have the most upside and definitely the most consistency and ability to be in the money. So those are the 3 I went with. Albizu is the one thing I'll touch on before we move on. Is pretty simple. Is just, this is the fresh face, even though coming in from Lone Star, Prairie Meadows, losing the horses like Strobe, Ultimate, Skelly. I mean, just the running line angle again. It's just a matter of he's running against very nice horses. Diodoro ships him down here, picks up Torres, as he has had basically his main rider ever since he started up his campaign late 2022. So I'm very interested in number 7, Albizu, and he'll definitely be a big turning point for the day around all of my tickets. I'm going 7-5-3. Charlie's going 7-1-5. Patrick's going 7-4-5. Noah's going 7-3-4. Guys, real quick here. We're going to go pretty quick, but Remington Park Oaks, the penultimate race on the card, grade 3 for $200,000, going a mile to 16 for 3-year-old fillies, of course. A field of 8. The morning line favorite. Again, these morning lines were drawn. The number 2, Merlaza, Pratt, Cox, of course. Second choice is the number pretty close. The number 8, Ancient Peace, for Rafael Bejarano and Brian Lynch, who picked up the training job not too many races ago, and this filly has just flourished. And I'll switch over the picks right now. Noah, you're up first in this race, my friend, and you are going with I'm going with Ancient Peace. 2 people are going with Merlaza, and Patrick is I'll let Patrick go first, Noah, since he's the outlier here. So Noah, Patrick, you get to talk about why you like most about Honor D Lady, who actually none of us have anywhere, and Patrick has on top.
Yeah, listen, you guys tell me why I should have Merlaza and Ancient Peace on top, and I'll tell you why Honor D Lady should be on all your tickets. No, listen, we talked about it before we got on the show. I don't understand why this horse ran in the Saratoga Oaks. We were there. That was an interesting race, to say the least, with the weather. It was just bizarre. In that race, honestly, the horse had excuses too. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that happened in that race, but I'm completely tossing that race based on, the surface and stuff. This horse has shown to be talented on the Tapeta, which they say traditionally is more, accustomed to turf. I just think, Sap Joseph, he's an interesting trainer where, he likes to pick soft spots for horses. And I think in this spot, Honor D Lady, who I believe is a talented horse and has been training well, should set up to be, coming from off the pace in a spot where, Merlaza has been, on a bit of a layoff and is now stretching back out in distance after going the 7 furlongs. I just think that, the Honor D Lady is going to be a big price in a horse that fits buyer speed figure wise, if it can translate from the Tapeta.
Well, yeah, it definitely fits based on that. Obviously, you could see the one dirt race lost by 14.5 to Infinite Diamond, who's not a bad horse in her own right, but it's just a matter of this horse's only wins come on the Tapeta. and the Gulfstream Turf, which not in their peak season, might I add. It's kind of this was the fall meet at Gulfstream. This is the summer meet at Gulfstream. Beat a nice horse in Ocean Club for sure, but that was on the turf. I don't know how it's going to translate to dirt. Obviously, AP honor code, blame this horse is bred to take to the dirt, has been working well on the dirt at Saratoga. I mean, this horse looks like it should take to the dirt and should get a decent setup, but I don't know if I trust a horse like Honor D Lady when I can go different ways. Noah, I'm going to go to you here. The number 2, Merlaza, looks to be the pretty decent morning line favorite and will most likely be a pretty decent favorite at post time. This is another horse that I've chased many, many times. Going back to the Black Eyed Susan and the Indiana Oaks, of course, when I was there. She looks the classiest, looks the most running against easily the best horses in this race, but she hasn't won since early April or mid-April.
Yeah, when I first looked at this race, I kind of had knocks against everybody. From a betting perspective, I didn't really like the race at all. But the thing that kind of tipped me toward Merlaza was just looking at who everybody else has faced and who she's faced. I mean, you think about the best 3-year-old fillies that have run this year. I mean, Taxed, Hoosier Filly, Defining Purpose, Positano Sunset's not a bad horse. So for me, it's not super creative, but I just felt like she was the most classy. And then I went with the 1 and 2nd, which I thought was a little bit of a flyer. For some reason, I am not ultra confident in this 8. I feel like if the 8 was really what she was, she would be in a much tougher spot. This is a weird spot for me. So if the 8's not as fast as she used to be, I just feel like the 1 could get pretty brave on the lead. And it's not like the horse is super slow on Figs, just been running against, not as good a company. But then again, I like to kind of look at these local connections and see what they can do up against the big boys.
No, I mean, absolutely. And if she gets the lead from the inside, Empire Racing Downwind brings a very good point here. Keep an eye out of the track because playing all these big favorites are all coming from the back, both on the turf and on the dirt. So keep your eye on Remington these next few days to see how the track's playing, and of course early in the card this day. Because if you're playing the late pick 5, you're going to want to see if there's a lot of horses coming from the front, or the track is playing pretty fair to where horses can come from the back. That's just something you want to keep in mind. Thanks, Racing Downwind, for that comment. But Charlie, me and you are not too creative in this spot. We have the 258 here. Nomadic Pride, who I thought was a little interesting, who we both have underneath, but the number 8 is who I have on top. But I'll let you talk about anything with Merlaza first, then you can run through your picks.
Yeah, I think honestly, Noah and I had the same kind of view. He just chose the 1, I chose the 5. I honestly it was, again, kind of one of those things, you learn in school. Kind of sometimes you don't know what the right answer is. So you kind of cross off the ones that are wrong. That's why for me, I also don't think this is a great race to bet on. However, I kind of just figured the 2 and 8 were probably, because obviously we didn't know the lines at the time, but I figured the 2 and 8 would get all the money on them. So you kind of just have to pick one of them and then look for, some sort of price to be creative and then throw the other one in there rather than, go chalk in a race like this. Although, some people still find a way to go chalk, not going to name names. Merlaza is the classiest, ran against the best competition of anyone. Definitely one of the easier spots Merlaza has been in. I think in those races that Merlaza has won, this is more what she's used to. So I think also from a pace perspective, we'll kind of get that first jump on the speed. We'll just sit, 2, 3, 4 lengths off the lead and then make that first move, which I do like as opposed to some of these other horses. With Nomadic Pride, the horse kind of just freaked. And I just was like, maybe the horse can show that again. Had been dealing with like a sloppy track before, tried turf. Then was on the big layoff. So then, finally gets a regular dirt track race after the layoff, the first race of that kind, and just absolutely freaks. So for me, that is a big plus. I'm guessing that's what you kind of saw as well. As first time getting those kind of conditions off the layoff, runs a much better figure. And clearly the public thought that too, getting bet down from 61 to 1 to now 13 to 1. And then the 8, I just don't know. The horse might fade. The horse could do well, but I'm not banking on a horse where there's other horses that will also go in this race. I don't think the distance is going to be a good thing. I think it's too far. And I'm just not going to take 5-2 odds on that horse.
Well, I'll tell you what, I actually love the 5-2 price, and Howard needs to stop stealing my thunder because he's taking my two of my points that I like most about Ancient Peace, who I have on top. Merlaza's just been pretty disappointing to me. Like I said, I loved her in the Indiana Oaks. I liked her in the Black Eyed Susan. And then I played her last time at Ellis too. And just disappointment. It just never, she seems to be in the right position always. And she can never just kick home. Obviously this is an easier spot, but at a horse that's most likely going to be near even money come post time, I'm inclined to look other ways. And the number 8, Ancient Peace, who Brian Lynch takes over the training job for John Sadler, brings to Remington Park, working fantastic at Churchill. And Howard pointed out in the chat here, love the 7 furlong breeze 2 back. I love this. I love this work. It gets her to go a little bit longer. Obviously, this is a 1 1/16. She ran that last time out, but it just gets her more fit for these longer distance races. Then comes back with a drill at 5 furlongs going 59-3, which again is another bullet to pair with her September 2nd work. She's working extremely forwardly, looks to be in a very good position to be either on the lead or just off the number 1 on the inside there. If they can avoid a speed duel, which again, Howard points out again, naturally, if she can avoid a speed duel with the number 1, I think the number 8 Ancient Peace is extremely interesting. And I think with the Merlaza in this race, you will get that 5-2 price unless everyone else on the outside looking in is not bet at all. And it's just kind of a 6-5, 2-1 type of thing. But I love Ancient Peace. And I think, like I said, if she can get into a decent position at all, I think she's extremely interesting on the outside. She can't trust the finish. That is completely true, Charles. But it's just a matter of, in a race like the Summer Oaks compared to the Remington Park Oaks in a place like this where there's only 2 clear speed, I think she could be very interesting. And I don't think they're going to go 46-3 to the half mile. If they do, then that's just kind of so be it. But I really like Ancient Peace if she can get a good spot. I'm going 8-2-5. Charlie's going 2-5-8. Petra's going 4-2-8. Noah's going 2-1-8. Guys, to the last race, which is, of course, the feature on the card. The last race of the Pick 5, the Grade 3 Oklahoma Derby, going 1 1/8 for 3-year-old boys. Or 3-year-olds, excuse me, could be girls, but they're all on the dirt. Draws a full field of 13 for $400,000. The morning line favorite is all the way on the outside in the 13-hole hit show for Flavian Pratt, Brad Cox. The second choice is the late running Red Route 1 for Joel Rosario and Steve Asmussen. And the third choice is to the inside, the number 3, Raised Cane for Ben Colebrook and nobody. Apparently he's just riding himself. No, I'm just kidding. But they don't know who the jockey is. Obviously, that'll be announced as we get later in the week. But I'm going to switch over the picks right now. And I'll tell you what, these picks are pretty interesting, guys, because I really thought that I was going to have an oddball out there, that no one was going to have him. And I saved this until now. Patrick, you son of a bitch. But and Noah has the horse in second, too. We both have the number 4 Cagliostro in first for Christian Torres and Cherie DeVoe, who's been on fire recently. If you haven't been keeping up, she's having a great year. Charlie is going with Hit Show, and Noah is going with the number 2, who I had on top and changed like probably 2 hours before the show. Easily the best name in the race, Tumbarumba, but which I will let Mr. Tumbarumba go first. Noah, you get to explain yourself first. What you like most about Tumbarumba?
Yeah, Tumbarumba for me was one of the most honest horses I think I've seen on paper. I mean, he is just absolutely tough as nails. You go back to that 7 furlong Keeneland race, he got into an absolute duel with Scotland and did not give an inch and ended up winning that fight. And then goes to Churchill, does the same thing. And seeing the comments, he was tenacious. And then I am tending to toss that race in the slot. I probably didn't like that. And then showed an ability to kind of sit off and close last time. And I feel like in all 3 of those wins, there's kind of been a question, could he beat a heavy favorite in the Keeneland race? Then at Churchill, could he beat non-winners of 2? And then when you go to Ellis, he had the disadvantage of being on the inside and trying to close into that speed favoring Ellis track. I think the question today is if he can get the 1 1/8, and if he's done what he can do before, I think he's going to answer that question and get it done.
Took words out of my mouth, my man. And no one else has this horse, so I'm gonna talk about my points as well. These two races early in 2023, like you said, beat Scotland by a nose, but again, still either way. And he was bumped and hurted in that race. You can see it in the notes. We're not gonna watch the replay. If you want to, please go back and watch that yourselves. But that was a very gutsy effort from Tumbarumba. Comes back at Churchill at 6.5, even shorter, and still gets up, beats Damon's Mound and Determinately, who are two very nice horses in their own right. Then goes to the Maxfield and the slop. Toss out for me. Horse just didn't like the slop at all. Just really was really pushed ahead by Sias and just never really had any say at all. Then comes back in the Ellis Park Derby going a mile, stalks really well, does get a very nice trip, but just bolts down the stretch, beating Transect, who's also a nice horse in his own right. Now coming over, getting a mile and an eighth, will be the first two-turn race that this horse is running in, except for the turf races. I don't think he'll have any. I don't think any trouble is not quoting me correctly, but I don't think he'll have much trouble covering the mile and an eighth. It's just a matter of, to me, are there going to be other horses in the race that are going to be better than him? Which could be the case, but I really like the forward movement of the speed figures and could be set up for a big one here, especially with that 6 furlong breeze that Brian Lynch, same type of move, right, that we talked about in the last race. Tumbarumba gets that same type of long-winded workout. So Tumbarumba is someone I'm very interested in. Patrick, you'll go last because I have the horse on top as well. Charlie, you'll get first crack at Hit Show here. Obviously the most classy horse in the field, running the last 5 races have been all either Derby preps, Triple Crown races, or a very obviously one of the top 3-year-old races in the nation in the Jim Dandy, losing to a horse maybe people know as Forte. Archangelo, Mage, obviously that's something you're going to be talking about as well, but easily the most classy field horse in the field.
Yeah, I pulled my best Kyle impression going 3 chalks in a row. Not proud of it. Not my proudest effort.
My impression.
But,
I mean, I should go back and see how many freaking chalks Charlie has. I think it's at least 4, but anyway.
But yeah, ran against my horse that will always run dear to my heart for calling this horse out, the greatest horse of all time, Mage. Also ran against our, 2 Phils.
One since,
Angel
right?
of them. Yeah, I don't want. Hey, you won the most important race that matters. You win the Super Bowl of horse racing.
Hey, they trained up to the Travers, Kyle. Come on.
They did prep for the Travers. My bad. Anyway, continue.
But then ran against Archangelo, ran against Forte, Saudi Crown, and Angel of Empire. I mean, these are all a bunch of horses where if they were in this spot, would probably be 9-5 or lower. So I get it though, because the horse hasn't beaten them, so you do have to respect that. But I just like the fact that for Hit Show, he has shown that versatility again. Has shown some races where it's 3-4 lengths off the lead and moves up. We'll probably, I will say, the gate is the only worry I have. It's the only thing that I think that could hurt Hit Show in this race. Not ideal to be starting the 13 gate. Obviously, you have to wait to see what scratches there are. But again, gets Pratt Cox. You can kind of tell a common theme of me sticking with them here. But yeah, just love the figures and consistency. I mean, it's been running against the best horses in the world and the best races in the U.S. and is now coming to this spot. So I certainly like that. I like the blinkers on as well. Help the horse focus in. And yeah, I was going to say, I think Red Route 1, I'll go into my next, is a very interesting horse in this spot. Kind of a polar opposite strategy, a horse that I haven't chased in the win category, but I have chased as an underneath horse, and it's just kind of unfortunately let me down. I really thought there were multiple times where because of hot paces, the horse would close in for third. It just hasn't quite done that. Like the Preakness hurt me. Had the horse, I remember, underneath in a few bets and got fourth when I had the horse in third. But still, gets Joel Rosario for Asmussen. They've still run great races together and have some good figures. They've shown the ability and hotter paces to show up. So definitely a horse where if the pace is hot, Red Route 1 could absolutely freaking win this race. But that is my only, reserve of putting the horse on top is if it isn't a fast pace, this horse is in trouble, as you can see last time out when it was a colder pace. And then with Raising Cane, obviously gets at least initial huge advantage on the rest of the field, not having to carry the weight of a jockey.
It's not the chicken tenders Raising Cane, just Cane. It could go some Raising Canes right now. That's for sure.
We will see if Raise Cane gets a jockey. Otherwise, I think this horse should be 1-9. I mean, not having to carry that much weight is just a tremendous advantage. But yeah, assuming Raise Cane does get a jockey, which I am going to assume, we don't know who it is yet. Maybe it'll be some WWE Royal Rumble thing where they just announce it right before the race.
There you go.
Cool. But still, his run again in the Derby. I know it was kind of obviously way too far out of this horse's realm, but ran nicely in some grade 3s and hasn't quite gotten the job done. But again, just another horse from a class perspective. Ran against Disarm, verifying again, as I mentioned, the Derby, Tap It Trice. So certainly a horse that has run against enough competition to be able to fit in the spot and get the job done. My reserve is honestly just the fact that last time out was bet down heavy and didn't really have an excuse and just didn't, perform well. But going back to those other efforts is certainly good enough to be competitive here.
I mean, absolutely. I watched them almost win the Indiana Derby by verifying, who obviously turned back and didn't look his best. But I still think that horse is more of a sprinter. And if that's the only race he's run well since the Gotham, I'm willing to play other ways, but definitely could be interesting underneath for sure in a race where there could be a decent early pace on. But Patrick, your turn, my friend. Cagliostro. This is a horse I found extremely interesting. Obviously ran very well at Churchill, goes to the Indiana Derby, just loses by 1 3/4, but had no room. I won't show the replay, but that's a good one to go watch back if you're going to watch one. And only 3 back to Il Miracolo, who's also racing in the Pennsylvania Derby, as the Smarty Jones at Parks is, of course, the prep for the Pennsylvania Derby. But Patrick, what'd you like most about Cagliostro?
Yeah, you hit on it, 2 back in the Indiana Derby. I love horses with excuses. We talk about that a lot. Horse has been training great. Sherry DeVoe's a solid trainer, and I really like this stretch out to the 1 1/8 in this spot. The horse can be tactical. I prefer this horse to be closer to the lead in this spot. And I think you're going to get a fair price. Listen, the horse has been, anywhere from, 6 to 1 down his last 3 starts. I do get a little scared seeing that the horse hasn't won, last 5 races, but has faced tougher. You can make the case for, obviously. But I think we're going to get a good price with a, you hit on Christian Torres, solid jockey. I'm really excited to see how Cagliostro runs.
Me too. I just love the tactical nature of Cagliostro. I think he's going to set a very nice trip just in behind the speed. I just, like I said, the mile added distance, I think, is not a hurt to this horse by any means. Hard spun upstart, hard spun mare, upstart sire. I think Cagliostro could benefit off the extra distance and the fact that he's been working so forwardly at Keeneland. Sherry DeVoe, who's hotter than anyone right now, points this horse out of the Pennsylvania Derby and into this race. I think this race was meditated, and I really think Cagliostro is going to run well with a very good trip. But yeah, absolutely, Howard. Do not leave this show because there's a very heated debate going on between 2 of our co-hosts, as I mentioned before, with college football. So do not leave anywhere, as even if you don't care much about college football, you're going to want to see this argument, I'm sure. But I'm going 4-13-2. Charlie's going 13-10-3. Patrick's going 4-13-10. Noah's going 2-4-13. Guys, real quick here, we're going to go through our best bets, and then we'll move on to college football. But Charlie, you're going to go first, as I have you first on the banner here. Your best bet is a horse we didn't talk about. Race number 4, an exacta 3-7, and then race number 6, a daily double 4-8 with 1. Charlie, talk about your best bets.
Yeah, always got to throw in a race that's not on the card to show everybody I'm carefully looking through it. So yeah, the 3 Sunlit Song, again, picking up Elliott, who we've talked about, tends to ride a lot of the top horses here and do well, has just shown great consistency and, again, versatility. Was sat way off the good amount off the pace last time out and nearly got there after normally being a horse that's closer up. So I love the versatility with this horse. Certainly some interesting works with the 7 furlongs. Don't see that all day, but love the consistency on the figures in all the 90s. And then put it in a box with Paluxy, who's also been running up to the 90s now. Definitely a horse that's a little more pace dependent. So I would say, the 3 is the one I'm a little more confident in getting the win done. But I just like the idea that I think that there is enough pace that the 7 will close in and maybe not get to the 3, but get in top 2. And I just think with the way the race is set up, it's a 2-horse race and you can get a nice value. And then, going into my double, race 6, we already talked about earlier, you and I, how much we like Good Like Magic. And I think the trip should be perfect. But as you mentioned, maybe not the best horse in this race, but should get the best trip in case in theory, who is the best horse, General Shipman, wins, one to be covered. And then, for me, in the next race with Juncture, I just think Juncture has to win in this spot. We've talked about it before plenty of times in these show when horses are in must-win spots. I think Juncture has to win here. So doing the double with the top 2 contenders, which I know is your favorite bet, into a Stone Cold with the 1 is the second leg. You're muted. It took a long time to get to strike 1.
Unlucky. Yeah, I know. I had to go shut my door because the beautiful fiance is coming home. So I don't want her to jump in and interrupt, but which that's a very good bet, Charlie. You might see something along those lines later. But Pat, good luck with your best bets. Patrick, you're going race number 6, a daily double 8 with 110, and then in race number 8, a pick 3, 4-7 with 2-4 with 4-13. Go ahead, talk about your best bets.
Yeah, I'm keyed in on General Shipment in race 6, and then I like Tipsy Gal the 10, who I think could be a bit of a price, and then Juncture in there. I prefer Juncture. Doesn't win with a price payout, but I think that horse might be a good shot at small odds. Then I'm going to play a pick 3. I'm pretty much covering all the favorites in the final 3 races, but my thinking is I'm pairing them up with longer shots. So you could play a bigger pick 3 with all the favorites and then go a little bit smaller, with some longer shots. But I think this is a fun sequence where you could have mixed ideas.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And like I said, there's many different ways you can go, but definitely more likely winners than others. So if you get even one of those prices home, that could easily bump up that ticket, especially if you're playing it multiple times. So Patrick, good luck with your best bets. Noah, your best bets going through race number 8. You talking about how you love the number 3 American Experiment underneath, and that's gonna be one of your best plays. And then a race 10, got to go with it, man. The win on number 2, Tumba Rumba. Go ahead, Noah. Talk about your best bets.
Yeah, I have to bring up a story from a couple weeks ago about how I was with the boss at Kentucky Downs, and I got to see firsthand one of his famous reverse key tries. So I'm going to try and do the same thing here with American Experiment. That Asmussen is going to be a lot better price than the other Asmussen, so maybe I can get some bombs in first or second. And then with Tumba Roomba, I think that's probably the most wide open race on the card. So it'll just be interesting to have some kind of bet on a winner, but maybe could do doubles or pick 3s into that horse to end the day.
I mean, absolutely. And obviously he'll be a very nice price. So good luck with your best bets as well. And I'm going with mine. Race number 6, Charlie, you are a smart man, my friend. I'm going race number 6, a double 4-8 into 1. Basically exactly what he talked about. The race, the number 4 in the 6th race, of course, is Good Like Magic. Who's my top pick in that race. Consider a really nice talking trip with General Shipment because I could win on the lead. So either one of those, whether the pace breaks down or not, I think is definitely a winner. And in race 7, Juncture just looks like the best horse in that race. Could close into hot pace, slow pace. I think Juncture, it is, in my opinion, for those connections, this, it's a must-win spot. If the horse doesn't win, it's almost I'm not sure they'll where they'll go with the horse in the next spot. But Juncture looks the most classy and definitely is the most likely winner to me in that spot. So I'm going to go there. Race number 8, I'm singling the number 7, who we all liked on top, which is Albizu on top. Looks just the most consistent on speed figures and looks to take another step forward in that race. I'm going to pair him with number 2, Merlaza, and the number 8, Ancient Peace. So 2 very similar bets with a decent favorite into 2 decent favorites, but hopefully I can get anywhere from 5, 6 to 8 to 1 on those bets, and being at a $20-$25 multiple could be very nice on the payout. But good luck to everybody else playing Remington Park this week, as this is going to be the end of the horse racing part of this show. Thank you guys so much for joining in. Greatly, obviously we couldn't do without you guys, so we greatly appreciate it. But again, don't go anywhere, as we are going to have some very nice football talk. If you're at all interested, I would highly recommend staying around, especially for this college football segment. We were going to talk about the 2 best college football games of the week, which is, of course, which there's a lot of good college football games this week, guys.
Finally.
Yeah, I know. After everyone's been playing crap every week, I'm going to put up some good background here. 1 second. There we go. Can't really see it, but we're now all of a sudden we've teleported to Circus Sportsbook, and now we're going to play some sports. So FSU at Clemson, guys. Florida State's favored by 2.5, which I messaged to Charlie. I was like, really? Only 2.5 they're favored by? Like, I would have thought, obviously, Clemson having that really bad loss could shake a lot of people towards Florida State's way. But, I mean, and even on the ESPN match predictor, guys, I mean, there's still 43% of people going with Clemson in this game. And Charlie, of course, I'm going to go to you first on a lot of these games. But Florida State's, of course, 3-0. They're ranked number 4 in the country. Clemson, with that bad loss, is out of the rankings, but they're 2-1. Very similar stats. If you go here, like total yards, passing, rushing yards allowed. I mean, obviously you see Florida State's numbers way higher than the Clemson defense, but realistically, Florida State's looked like the better team all along.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tossing the last game. Look, it was the red bandana game for Boston College, very emotional game for them. They're always charged up for that one. The weather was terrible. Florida State was down 4 starters on their defense and I think 1 or 2 on their offensive line. That can't happen if you expect a team to be at their best. Jordan Travis got popped in that game. I remember watching it. So for me, that game's a complete toss to me. There were some unlucky turnovers that are normally unforced that helped Boston College in that game. Realistically, Florida State, with everything going against them, could have and probably should have won that game by 16, 17 points. And I'm not sold on Clemson. The reason their stats look so much better now is if you can scroll down a little, I think it'll show the schedule. I believe they played like FAU and Charleston Southern. Like, come on. No wonder. Like, obviously the numbers are going to make their offense look better. The one time they played a team you've heard of, they lose 28-7 on the road against a Duke team that's better than in the past, nothing special. Whereas at least Florida State played LSU, who went back to rebound and killed the team. And then again, played Boston College, who's not great, but it's still an ACC road game and against a team that's charged up. Look, Jordan, in these kind of games, Florida State's defense, now that I think they are going to be healthy, is arguably as good as Clemson's. It's fairly close. But the offense is not even close. Florida State has better receivers. Clemson has a better running back. Florida State has a significantly better quarterback. Jordan Travis is a top 5 quarterback in the country. He is an unbelievable playmaker, high IQ game. I'll be honest, because it still is a road game, I thought this would be Florida State minus 4.5 or 5.5. That's where I would have had the line. And I get it. This is an ultimate trap game. It is begging you to take Florida State. It is begging you to. Why would you not take Florida State at this line? That being said, I don't care. This is a team I believe in. I, before the season started, thought they would run the table and win the ACC and then lose in the college football playoff. I'm not going to back down on that bold prediction. Not that bold, but somewhat bold prediction now. I'm sticking with Jordan Travis and the boys. They're going to be healthier. The weather will be clean. It's not the same emotionally charged game. I think Clemson's going to be scared that they're playing a team they've heard of now. I think Florida State's going to win this game somewhat convincingly.
I agree, and obviously, like I said, that close win at Boston College is what is I'm sure is providing that type of spread. Boston College obviously not the best team, and obviously they haven't really played too. Obviously, they played LSU and they crushed LSU, but looks like that program sadly is on the down swing at least for now. But I mean, I get it. Charleston Southern, Florida Atlantic. I mean, and obviously they lost it. They got killed by Duke, frankly. For me, this game is going to be about Florida State's defense. And if they can hold Clemson to any type on any type, like at all, like the Duke defense did to Clemson, if they can hold them on certain possessions, I think Florida State really has this one and definitely will cover. But those defensive numbers, of course, are the ones that are scaring you, right? They allow over 120 rushing yards and almost 270 passing yards. And obviously the big number for Clemson is they only allow just under 150 passing yards per game. But again, you look at who they've played: Duke, Charleston Southern, Florida Atlantic. Now they get against a very good team, ranked top 4 in the nation right now. So that will be the biggest tell, but I would definitely be riding Florida State as well. Patrick, Noah, I'm going to throw it over to you guys real quick. I know, not everyone pays attention to college football as much as everybody else, but this is one of the games of the week and definitely a game to be talked about with the spread so low.
Yeah. One thing I'll hit on, Clemson's there's only 19 FBS teams, I believe, that have less turnovers than them this year. Turnovers have been a problem. And if they don't turn the ball over on Saturday, I think they win the football game. Florida State really doesn't do it for me yet. Watching that BC game, BC committed 15 penalties on the offensive side of the ball. They put that game on a platter for Florida State to take and cover, and Florida State just did not play well. I get people were out, but that's a game, if you're a top 4 team in the country, you should win. You should win convincingly. Clemson at home, this is a game that, Dabo's team's reeling. It's sad to say already, but they're reeling. They're talented. I think Clemson wins the football game.
Yeah, and Darius, what's going on, my friend? I'm not sure I've seen your name in here before. Thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it, man. That was going to be my next point, was the over-under. With teams like these types of defenses, Clemson obviously has a good up front, but if they can pick apart the secondary, I think 55 could be a generous gift as well. There's a lot of lines in this game that are obviously 55 is a lot of points, but in a game like this where there's 2 questionable defenses, and two very high-powered offenses, I think you could definitely get that number. I think over 55 it could be a very good bet with that as well. And no, I don't know if you have anything to add on this before we move on to the big game for college football. But I mean, this is definitely an interesting game for sure.
Yeah, I think sometimes people kind of tend to lean more towards past successes. Clemson's been such a big name in football the last couple of years. They've had such success. Dabo Swinney's got a hell of a resume.
Which is what Jim just said. They get bet based on reputation and stuff like that, and maybe their talent level is just not as good this year.
But you're always worried about playing in early conference games. I'm especially worried for my Wildcats because they have to go in and play the Gators, and that's definitely going to be a tough environment. So I'm really looking forward to it. But I'd like to have a lot more confidence, but I really don't.
Well, I hear you. Trust me. And of course, this is Big Noon Saturday. So at 11 a.m.
I think that actually hurts Clemson. I think a morning game is not a good thing. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like when you picture like the Death Valley with the environment, everybody under the lights and that loud Clemson crowd to scare you. I just feel like, again, and also I think Noah can attest this, Patrick, and even you, Kyle, we're all relatively young enough to talk about this. When you're a college kid, it's a lot easier to get all riled up and be locked in for a game that's 7:38 at night than when you're having to get up at 9 a.m. and have to lock in for more. It does matter.
Yeah, but it's Clemson, right? I mean, you go into Clemson at any time. At any time, and they're going to have that crowd rocking, especially in a game where they're playing the number 4 team in the country. But your point is definitely taken, Charlie. Tell you what, I mean, I didn't wake up for my football team. I mean, we won 4 games in 4 years, so I definitely didn't wake up for my football team. But for a team like Clemson, I might be a little more inclined. But this is definitely a game I think there's a lot of different ways you can go, or a lot of different cases that can be made for either side of the ball. I do like Florida State to cover in this game, and I do like the over for sure. I think the over I'd be much more interested in than the spread in this game, but this is definitely one to go for. But guys, this is the one, Notre Dame, Ohio State. And before we talk about this game, I need 2 seconds here just to change into my attire for this game.
Oh, he's not wearing a Notre Dame thing,
spectator in this game.
He's going to wear a Michigan sweatshirt. I know it.
Anyway, so is the boys in blue. We're playing Rutgers. Doesn't matter, but I hate both of these teams.
God, what a tough schedule for Michigan.
So I'm going to play.
UNLV, he's attacking you, Kyle. Wow. He's attacking you.
Hey, I don't have to hear it, dude. I don't have to hear it till Michigan's in the playoff and Ohio State isn't. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, boys, take it away. This is the game we're talking about. I'm in my attire. Patrick's in his. Ohio State, Notre Dame, 6 versus 9. Very nice. But it's a primetime game on NBC, 6:30 p.m. between 2 of the top schools right now and 2 of the biggest high-powered offenses in the game today. And the big thing is that Noah, and I said the one guy that didn't matter. Sorry. Patrick.
Wow.
No, that's not what I meant. All right. It's over. No, and Howard, my college did have football, but they didn't have football. Again, I watched a guy kick in the homecoming game, a 19-yard field goal. He laced it under the bar to lose the game. But that's it. Patrick is a Notre Dame fan. Charlie, of course, goes to Ohio State. So this is the game of the week for these 2 guys. I'm going to let them kind of hash it out here. Charlie, I'll let you go first. Ohio State, I mean, they haven't looked necessarily extremely explosive, of course, but they played Western Kentucky. They beat a lackluster Indiana team. Now Western Kentucky, and now they go into South Bend to play Notre Dame, who, again, their offense has been amazing, but they've also played basically nobody.
No, the offense hasn't been amazing. Quite frankly, the offense has been a disaster. That offensive line for Ohio State is a disaster. I'm praying and hoping after the Western Kentucky game when they showed some flash that they can be better. Look, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver prospect I've ever seen. Travion Henderson's finally healthy. It's good to see him. I don't know what to think about Kyle McCord. He obviously hasn't been the guy, and now he's kind of been thrown into being the guy now that Stroud's gone. Now this is his first real test. I'll be honest. I think a lot of people were hoping and expecting for me to just shit on Notre Dame and rip into them and talk about why Ohio State's going to win. I'm going to take Ohio State because I have to out of pride, but I love Notre Dame in this spot. And I'm going to tell you why. When we played Notre Dame last year and got the win, and I think Patrick can admit this, their quarterback play was about the equivalent of the high school I went to at Deerfield High School. I mean, you look, their quarterback transferred to Alabama and he got benched within a minute. I mean, Notre Dame's quarterback room was probably the worst of any like power program I've ever seen. I mean, you had like a -6 starting quarterback. It was a joke. I could have put a fan in from Notre Dame with a blindfold on and probably had better quarterback play come out. Now you have Sam Hartman, who is my favorite college football quarterback I've grown up on. I watched him from a show on Netflix, as Darius mentioned. He basically has been a quarterback since the Obama administration. I mean, the guy's been in college football for about 40 years. I think he's married with 6 kids. But no, he's unbelievable. He's a great
Phillip
player.
Rivers.
Phillip Rivers. First of all, I have one comment on that.
Go for it. I love
Do
Sam
me a
Hartman,
favor and look around college football on the rosters, and you tell me the amount of years that some of those players have played. This is
there's a kicker. Yeah, no, you're right. There's a kicker who actually they said is like 32 with kids.
Clemson
so,
just
like,
picked up a kicker that's been working on what's it called in New York City? The stock exchange. I'm blanking on the word.
The New York Stock Exchange?
Wall Street. 8 years out. He's been in college football for 8 years.
That's amazing.
So, like, arguing about that, please don't bring that up. That's
no. I'm not using it against him.
I think it benefits us if anything.
Agreed, 1,000%. He's been in a ton of big games. I think in these tight games, the biggest difference is quarterback play, and I think Sam Hartman is probably a top 5 quarterback in the country. I mean, I'd put Caleb Williams and Michael Penix above him for sure, but I think he's right around after those two guys. Look, their run game has been solid. They don't have anybody that stands out to me at receiver, but their defense is locked down. I remember when Notre Dame played us. I mean, Patrick, you know better than I, but I believe one of your corners when we played last year was banged up or something, because I remembered reading a report and thinking we'd take advantage of that. Playing in Notre Dame, what's tough for me is this. Notre Dame is Notre Dame, which is the only reason I think Ohio State could get this job done, is whenever they get a chance to have a big spotlight game, other than when Trevor Lawrence didn't play for Clemson, they always find a way to blow these games. That's the only reason I'm taking Ohio State. I just think Notre Dame's going to Notre Dame and find a way to lose. But in my opinion, I think Notre Dame's a better team on paper. I think Notre Dame's the toughest game on our schedule. It's on the road. Penn State's quarterback is not good. Michigan is just not a good football team, quite frankly. They look terrible.
That is
I mean,
the worst take I've ever heard.
Tell me Michigan
struggled against Bowling Green. Struggled.
Yes, in the first half, tell me that game was not close.
It was close. They looked terrible.
Game's a fucking walk.
Yeah,
dude.
they didn't have their
okay, all right.
Listen, the worst teams in the country.
All right, listen.
Notre Dame is the best team on our schedule. They're the game that scares me the most. I think if there's any team that's going to take out Ohio State, it is going to be Notre Dame. The other thing I do like about Ohio State is they played a Western Kentucky team who's going to but a quarterback who put up over 4,000 yards. He was right behind Bailey Zappi's numbers. So they have a great offense that our defense completely shut down. So that is the one other thing I love. Even though the quarterback plays the weakest I've seen since I've gotten here, our defense is finally ready. Our defense is finally good. And I think it really is going to come down to, can Ohio State's defense get to Sam Hartman? If they can, Ohio State wins this game in a breeze. If they can't, and if, Kyle McCord struggles under pressure, they might lose. This is their toughest game. I think Notre Dame would kill Michigan. This is the toughest game. Absolutely.
Patrick?
Yeah, listen, I do think that it's obvious Ohio State, you look at the rosters, the talent, there's a gap in talent. But at the end of the day, I believe football games are always won at the line of scrimmage. Notre Dame has that offensive line that is going to their offensive line is very, very good. They have 2 tackles that are studs. A running back who grew up right down the street from me, and Audric Estime, he's 5'11", 275. He's a bowling ball. I mean, the guy, she's just incredible. I think they're going to control both lines of scrimmage, and call me crazy, but Notre Dame's secondary is unbelievable this year.
It's very good.
They've been Benjamin Morrison's a stud. He's going to be a top pick. I don't know if he's going to come out this year, but definitely next year. I'm not saying he's going to be able to shadow Marvin Harrison, but they have multiple corners they'll cover Harrison, correct me if I'm wrong, and Buka, and then Fleming.
Yeah, Mecca Buka.
Notre Dame can match what Ohio State has. This is the first time I've said in years in a game where Notre Dame is an underdog against a dominant program. They can't lose this game. This is something they have to win at home. Charlie sounds nervous, which I like.
This is the good point, though, right? Patrick,
that's spot on.
The game is so important to Notre Dame because since they're not in a conference to be able to play in a setting like that, if Ohio State loses, they can beat teams down the line, win as conference champion, and be in at the 3 or 4. If Notre Dame loses, they don't have anyone to back up that to get back up
Do they
the
have
ladder.
SC? Because USC, I think, is good enough.
They do. They do.
Yeah, and I mean, USC will probably win the Pac-12, but you're right. They do have a lot more pressure.
And, you bring in the quarterback. I mean, I can't hide the quarterbacks. McCord, if Notre Dame puts the game in McCord's hand, that could just benefit them. If McCord's talented, don't get me wrong, but
no, you're right.
He hasn't shown it yet.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like you said,
fun.
this is where the shit hits the fan realistically in the games like in college football is when they start, you get these types of matchups, they're not playing the Citadel anymore. If you're Alabama, you're playing teams that have a lot of recruiting, a lot of, the Power 5 teams. They can hammer you on both sides of the ball. You have to be ready for these games. And like I said, there's a lot more pressure on Notre Dame in these types of spots. And they looked fantastic, but they've both been pretty evenly matched up just based on stats alone. So coming into this game, it should just be a really good game to watch. And yeah, Charlie, to your point, I can't wait till Ohio State comes to the big house and JJ McCarthy rips them apart again. But either way,
I will say shout out to the Illinois. I think he's an Illinois kid. I think he's from. I think he went somewhere in Illinois.
He's from. He actually went to my dad works in a school district, and I went to my dad's school district. So he's sick and tired of hearing JJ McCarthy's name. But he's a really good quarterback. I'll tell you.
One thing I will say: win, lose, or draw. Shout out to Notre Dame and shout out to Ohio State for actually scheduling each other and not playing the UNLVs and East Carolinas of the world. Some schools don't want to have a cheating coach who suspends themselves against a bunch of 2-star recruits and walk-ons.
You played Western Kentucky and Youngstown State. What do you want?
But then after we go to Notre Dame, I heard Michigan was.
We're playing conference. Doesn't matter that our conference sucks ass. It doesn't.
No. But all I'm saying is you can still schedule at least one big non-conference game a year. And Michigan was like, you know what, we can't because we have to suspend our cheating coach. So let's go play a bunch of 2-stars who are going to go in and lose by 50.
The schedule was made a long time before that, but. It's the way it goes.
It worked out very conveniently.
For once, Michigan has an easy fucking schedule. For once.
Who did you guys play last year?
We played 4 top 5 teams last year.
Ohio State, Penn State, which are both in conference. You have to.
I'll look at it right now, but we're gonna move on to NFL.
We can talk about this off air. Yeah, they don't play anymore.
But
I will say the
NFL
best bet would have been to bet Notre Dame in the future because I think we talked about this before. Ohio State was like -14 when the season started in this game, which is absurd to me, by the way.
Yeah, we're gonna go through these pretty quick here, guys, because we're already way over the time that we need to be at right now. Atlanta, Detroit. Detroit's looked very good. They're favored by 3.5, over under 46.5 here in this spot. But Detroit's looked very good, but Atlanta starting 2-0. Now they most likely get Cordell Patterson back in this week, which is just another weapon that they have on offense. Bijan Robinson and Algier have looked an amazing duo behind the ball, and it's just a matter of if their quarterback can step up, which he ended up doing last week, but this is definitely another test for sure with the Lions defense and obviously the stout offense that they put together. But Charlie, I'll let you talk first, of course. They are at Ford Field in Detroit, which obviously could play to Jared Goff. As actually Darius points out, he likes Jared Goff at home over Desmond Ridder, which of course we could all say that. But this game is I think this game's a lot more interesting than people think it is.
No, it's a trap game. Absolutely. That's why I like Atlanta in the spot with the points. I mean, look, this game opened when I like to do my stats and my research to, give leans on games. And when I looked, I believe Detroit was like -4.5 or -5 when this started, and Atlanta's getting bet down and it's at home. For me, I see Detroit's coming off of a not shocking, but still disappointing loss to Seattle, and now gets to play Atlanta at home, and you're making Desmond Ridder take on his first real tough game on the road after playing home games against a soft Carolina team that's garbage, and then a decent Packers team. But still, you're making Jordan Love go into his first real tough game that wasn't the Bears. I hate to say it as a Bears fan, but let's just be real here. But yeah, for me, again, you have to look at trap games, and when everything, especially in the NFL and college, it's a little harder. But in NFL, trap games are the easiest to fall into, and I feel like anybody would probably assume Detroit's -5.5, -6, and would cover. I'm going to take Atlanta. I mean, their defense looks a lot better this year. Bijan Robinson is dope. And Desmond Ridder doesn't have to do much. You look at his stats, 350 yards passing. They don't ask him to do much. And like you mentioned, getting Cordell Patterson back, I think they're just going to rely heavy on this run game, which, the Lions didn't show any ability to really stop the run. So I'm going to take Atlanta here.
And the other thing to note is Detroit suffered a few injuries last week. Obviously, David Montgomery is out. You can see their secondary. Gardner Johnson's on IR, still on IR. Mosley and Joseph are both questionable, so there's still some injury questions now on Detroit's side. I can't see David Montgomery's going to play this week. I mean, that would be a very big comeback for a running back. So they're going to have to rely on that rookie Juwan Gibbs. Hopefully, I mean, if they make him out to the star that he's going to be, I think they could do really well, especially against a rush defense that's pretty lackluster for Atlanta, but they have a very good secondary. And if Jared Goff gets stopped throwing the ball, the Lions could have a tough time. But I would be leaning more towards the Lions at home here than the Falcons. But of course, there is Lee says Detroit bounces back big time. 27-14 Lions for the boss. But of course, that's one thing we're going to have to talk about.
We're thinking the same way there.
And the last game we're talking about, guys, is Bills Commanders here. The Commanders started 2-0 for the first time in what feels like forever. They have a very good, Sam Howell, talk about a guy that people thought was going to be absolute, for lack of a better term, dog ass. And he's been actually really good. And he's been really good. So he's been definitely sufficient and on the level of good. Brian Robinson and that backfield's been very good welcome change for the Commanders. They're at home, but now they have to face a very good Bills team, and looks like they finally have a run game in Jared Cook. But I think this is another game. They're favored by 6.5, but this could be pretty close here. But I would definitely lean towards the Bills.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Commanders here. Again, just rolling with the underdogs. Public is all over the Bills. When I last looked, it was like 70% or so was on the Bills, and this line hasn't moved. I love this Commanders team. Look, if you watched that Broncos game, they struggled early, didn't really know what they were doing, got settled in. That defensive line with Chase Young back healthy is unbelievable. They've been ravaging teams. I think they're going to make the Bills really struggle with that and get to Josh Allen and make him make those mistakes, where he just says that secondary has to be down there somewhere and throws just dumb interceptions, quite frankly. So I think their defense and run game will hang in, and I just think that's going to be their style. As good as Sam Howell is in their receiving core, I think Washington understands the only way that they hang in this game. Yeah, I think the weather, if anything, I think that helps the Commanders. I think they understand the only way they stay in this game, conservative passing for Sam Howell, rely heavy, as you mentioned, Kyle, that run game that's gotten a lot better, and then trust their strong defense. That's how they win this game. As Jim kind of touched on, if you get into a dogfight with the Bills like we saw with the Jets, even when Rodgers went down, they struggle. It's when you let them do those high-scoring, free-flowing games like that Raiders game where they just pummeled them. That's when they get away. And I think the Commanders are a matchup nightmare for the Bills because they're going to want – agreed, boss man. I think the under is a great pick here as well. I think they're going to try to make this a gutsy game. I could see this being like a Bills 20-17 game-winning field goal game. I think Washington hangs in, makes it dirty, keeps it low scoring.
But you got to think Josh Allen. He threw all three of his picks in the first game. It was very ugly, frankly, in the first game. Yeah. Then he comes back and bounces back like the Josh Allen we know. They finally look like they have a run game. This Bills team now they're getting parts of the game that they didn't have before, and if that defense continues to step up like they should, the Bills are still going to be hard in this game, I think. But the Commanders are better than people think, and a lot better than they are on paper. It'll be a good game for sure. Noah, you haven't talked at all, my friend. You're going to have the final thoughts here as we close out the show. But anything you want to touch on before actually then move to any of the other guys, if you have any best bets of the weekend or anything like that.
I'm just excited for those Ryder Cup talks next week.
I'll see you there, my friend. Because, by the way, you want a hot take? Justin Thomas deserves to be nowhere near that Ryder Cup lineup.
Oh,
but that's
stop
just my
it.
opinion. Nope. He was absolutely horrendous this year.
Okay, so was Ian Poulter been the last 8 years, and what does he do in the Ryder Cup?
Well, he shouldn't be in the Ryder Cup either. I agree with that too.
Okay, but what does he do when he's there?
I get it. And
all right, gentlemen, this will be next week.
Justin Thomas loses 4-3, and then we'll talk about this.
Justin Thomas is going to go undefeated.
We'll do this next. Hold on.
All right, Charlie. All right, Noah, and then Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah, let Noah. No, I want to let Noah say his thoughts because he isn't getting to comment on the games. Then I'll rattle off my best bets.
No, I just wanted to leave with everybody's talking about the U.S. team. This Europe team is legit. I
agree.
Europe at plus money. I would hate to bet against my own country, but I feel like this is going to be a Ryder Cup for the ages, and I'm excited.
And on the home turf.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
All right, best bets. I already know Patrick is going to hate one of them, but I don't care. So starting out, Western Kentucky playing at Troy. They just lost to James Madison after James Madison had a big win where you thought they would fall apart and they didn't. Western Kentucky is going to win their conference. They're on the road as a slight underdog. That offense is unstoppable. I think the reason they're an underdog is because Ohio State killed them. Throw that out the window. They beat them. Colorado plus 21. Oregon is a terrible football team. They beat up on Portland State. Congratulations. They have one player that you've probably heard of. The rest of them are probably just focusing on getting to 9 to 5, making small money. They're not football players. They played a bad
Portland
Texas
State
Tech
beat
team.
North American 94-0.
Yeah, they covered the 91.5. Then after that, they played against a bad Texas Tech team and barely survived against a Colorado team that hasn't played amazing competition, but still, this is an important game for them to hang in there. They have Bo Nix, a.k.a. Bo Picks. You know when he's in these big games, he collapses and makes dumb mistakes. Think he has a few turnovers. I also like the under in that game because everybody's betting the over. It's moved up to like 71, which is just ridiculous with those kind of defenses that Oregon has. I don't see it getting that high. Washington State money line getting plus points at home against Oregon State. They're an unbelievable football team. Pummeled Colorado State. Upset Wisconsin and dominated them at home. They're at home again. I love them in this spot. Give me the points. Give me the money line. They could beat up on them. South Carolina minus 6.5. Mississippi State lost to LSU like 100-6. They're terrible. UNC minus 7.5. They're playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is terrible. They might get 10 yards of total offense. Pittsburgh is terrible. USC is playing Arizona State, who's the worst Power 5 team in the country. They just got beat up on by Fresno State at home. USC minus 34.5. Lincoln Riley loves proving how good they are against bad teams and struggling against good ones. I think USC will win 95-0. And then Washington is at home against Cal. Look, Washington's going to win the Pac-12. They're going to prove that USC's frauds with that bad defense. They beat up on Michigan State like 40-something to 7. They literally didn't hit the over because they beat them that bad. They have the best quarterback arguably in the country, in Michael Penix Jr. They're minus 20.5. They're going to beat up on Cal as well, who cannot move the football. Those are your best bets for the week. And when they go 7-0, you can thank me. Sorry, Patrick. Colorado's hanging in there.
I mean, they are. I mean, the plus 21 is. I mean, I get the hype and
Deion's not letting that happen.
There's going to be a lot of money on Colorado. That's the other thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Especially at plus 21. So that's the other thing you got to keep in mind. But if that line moves, keep your eye on it. But plus 21 seems like a lot of points to have a Colorado team against an Oregon team who hasn't looked necessarily like the Marcus Mariota days by any means. So. But those are your best bets, and that's going to conclude the show for us today, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining in as we've kept everybody throughout basically the viewership throughout the entire show, so which has been absolutely great to see. Thank you guys so much for 95-0. That's Charlie for you, racing downwind. That's just the way it goes. Honestly, he says stuff like that. I don't even bat an eye at it anymore. That's just the way it goes. But that is going to be it, guys. Again, thank you guys so much for joining the show, and good luck with your bets this week. Good luck with everything this week, with your teams, with your bets, and crush your bets this week in college football, NFL, and of course Sunday at Remington Park. Have a great night, everybody. Good night.